Emma Carter had looked through her wedding photos dozens of times. It had been 3 months since the ceremony, and life was finally slowing down after the whirlwind of planning, family visits, and thank-you calls. On a quiet Sunday evening, she sat on the couch in her small living room with a cup of tea and a large envelope of printed photographs. Outside, the rain tapped softly against the windows. Emma smiled as she flipped through the images. There was the moment she walked down the aisle, her father nervously adjusting his tie beside her. There was the photo of Daniel, her husband, laughing with his groomsmen just before the ceremony. And there was the picture taken right after they said their vows. Emma and Daniel standing together in the garden behind the church, surrounded by friends and family. Everyone was smiling. Everyone looked happy. Except Emma suddenly frowned. She leaned closer to the photograph. Standing behind her and Daniel, a few feet away, was a man she didn't recognize. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't talking to anyone. He was just standing there. Watching. Emma blinked. At first she assumed he must be someone from Daniel's side of the family. Their wedding had been fairly large. Nearly 100 guests had attended, and Emma had only met some of Daniel's distant relatives once or twice. Still, something about the man felt strange. He was tall and pale, wearing a black suit and white shirt. His dark hair was neatly combed, his face expressionless. And while everyone else in the photo seemed caught in a moment of laughter or conversation, the man was perfectly still. As if he had been placed there deliberately. Emma picked up her phone and called out to Daniel, who was working in the next room. "Hey," she said. "Can you come here for a second?" Daniel walked into the living room a moment later, holding his laptop. "What's up?" Emma handed him the photo. "Do you know who this is?" Daniel glanced at the picture. Then frowned. "Which one?" "The guy behind us." Daniel leaned closer. For a few seconds he said nothing. Then he shook his head. "No idea." "You're serious?" "Yeah," he said slowly. "I don't remember seeing him at the wedding." Emma laughed softly. "That's impossible." But Daniel didn't laugh. He kept staring at the photo. "Maybe he was someone from your family?" Emma shook her head. "I don't think so." Still, she wasn't worried. Not yet. Over the next few days, Emma casually showed the photograph to several people. First, she sent it to her parents. Her mother replied almost immediately. "Sweetheart, I don't know who that man is." Emma assumed her mother must have forgotten. But when she asked her father, he said the same thing. Then she sent the photo to her bridesmaids. None of them recognized the man either. Finally, Emma contacted the wedding photographer. The photographer looked through his files carefully. "I remember almost everyone who was there," he said during their call. "But I don't remember him." Emma frowned. "You're sure?" "Yes," the photographer said. "I don't think he was one of the guests." After that conversation, something strange began to settle in Emma's mind. A small, quiet uneasiness. If the man wasn't from her family, and he wasn't from Daniel's family, then why was he in their wedding photo? For the next week, Emma tried to forget about it. She told herself the man must have been a distant guest. Or maybe someone who had wandered into the background during the photo. But late one night, curiosity got the better of her. Emma went into the spare room where several old family photo albums were stored. Her mother had given them to her after the wedding. They were filled with decades of family memories. Birthdays. Vacations. Graduations. And weddings. Emma opened the first album and began flipping through the pages. At first, everything looked normal. Old pictures of her grandparents. Family reunions. Black and white snapshots from years ago. Then she reached a page labeled Margaret and Thomas, 1992. Her parents' wedding. Emma smiled as she looked at the photograph. Her mother stood in a lace dress, holding a bouquet. Her father stood beside her, looking younger than Emma had ever seen him. Behind them were several relatives. And near the back of the group, Emma froze. The same man was standing there. He looked exactly the same. The same black suit. The same pale face. The same expressionless eyes. Emma felt a cold sensation spread through her chest. She leaned closer to the photo. Maybe it was someone who simply looked similar. But the longer she stared, the more certain she became. It was him. The exact same man from her own wedding photo. Emma flipped through the album faster now. Her heart was beginning to beat harder. She reached another page. This one was much older. The label read, Helen and George, 1956. Her grandparents' wedding. The photograph was black and white. The edges were worn and slightly faded with time. Emma looked at the couple standing in the center. Then her eyes slowly moved to the back of the group. And there he was again. The same man. Standing quietly behind the family. Unchanged. Unaged. Watching. Emma sat back on the floor. For a long moment she simply stared at the photograph. 3 different weddings. 3 different decades. The same man. And he hadn't aged a single day. Over the next several hours, Emma searched through every album she could find. More wedding photos appeared. Distant relatives. Great-aunts. Cousins she barely remembered. And again, the man appeared. Sometimes near the back of the group. Sometimes standing off to the side. But always present. Always watching. By the time Emma finished, she had spread nearly a dozen photographs across the floor. They covered almost 80 years of family history. And in every single wedding photo, the man was there. Emma barely slept that night. The next morning, she drove to her grandmother's house. Her grandmother, Evelyn, was the oldest living member of the family. If anyone could explain this, it would be her. Evelyn lived in a small white house at the edge of town. She answered the door slowly, leaning on her cane. Emma, she said warmly. What a surprise. Emma tried to smile. I need to show you something. A few minutes later, they were sitting together at the kitchen table. Emma placed the photographs in front of her grandmother. Have you ever seen this man before? She asked. Evelyn adjusted her glasses and studied the pictures. At first, her expression didn't change. But as she continued looking, her smile slowly disappeared. The room grew very quiet. Finally, Evelyn set the photographs down. Her hands trembled slightly. Where did you find these? She asked softly. In the family albums, Emma said. Grandma, who is he? Evelyn didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked toward the window. For a long moment, she seemed lost in thought. Then she spoke. Our family has known about him for a very long time. Emma felt her stomach tighten. You mean, you've seen him before? Evelyn nodded slowly. Yes. She picked up one of the photos. The picture of Emma's wedding. He appears in every wedding, she said quietly. Emma shook her head. That's impossible. But Evelyn continued as if she hadn't heard. My grandmother told me about him when I was young. She said he had been appearing in our family photographs for generations. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. But who is he? Evelyn looked at her. Her eyes were serious now. No one knows. The words hung heavily in the air. Emma swallowed. Then why does he appear? Evelyn stared at the photographs again. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Because he's watching. Emma felt a knot tighten in her chest. Watching for what? Evelyn was silent for a long moment. Then she finally said the words that Emma would never forget. Some marriages last a lifetime. Others fall apart. Emma waited. Evelyn's eyes slowly returned to the photo. The man appears at every wedding in our family. He watches the couple. And somehow, he decides. Emma stared at her grandmother. What do you mean? Evelyn's voice became even quieter. He chooses which marriages survive. The room felt suddenly colder. Emma looked down at her own wedding photograph. The man stood behind her and Daniel. His face blank. His eyes fixed on the camera. For the first time, Emma noticed something she hadn't seen before. He wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking directly at her. Emma slowly lifted her head. Grandma, what happens if he chooses wrong? Evelyn didn't answer. She simply looked at the photo again. And whispered. No one knows. But that night, when Emma returned home, she looked at the wedding photo one more time. And this time, she noticed something that made her heart stop. The man's head was slightly turned. And his eyes were no longer looking at the camera. They were looking straight at her.